You know I always am, dude. Now then, let's get this show on the road. Hello everybody and welcome back to Zero Reviews. Like I had said previously, we're covering Toonami some more with the Intruder II. Now then, you didn't think I'd make a video about Toonami and not talk about the latest Toonami event, right? And while I did sort of rank the total immersion events last review, I'm going to be doing a re-ranking this time again with the Intruder II. Did it live up to the hype? Did it crash and burn? What exactly happened? Well, let's get started now, shall we? Let me just say that I am shocked how we were getting a sequel to one of Toonami's best events ever. The teaser certainly showed it, but let me tell you that the footage you are seeing is mostly just test footage. The test footage did do what it set out to do, however. It got everyone hyped up. Then we found out, oh, the Intruder II is coming out in November and will run for 7 weeks. I got even more excited at the prospect of 7 episodes. However, let's do a recap of the events between Trapped in Hyperspace and the Intruder II for a bit of clarity. Now then, to list off what happened, the original Absolution was destroyed when a space pirate known as Ocelot Rex barged in and stole Sarah. Tom tried to beat Rex, but was defeated and left for dead. Several robots, however, built him a new body to use and a new ship. Tom beat Rex and took Sarah back, the two heading off in their new ship, and thus the Tom 3 era began. Of course, this was only done in the Toonami Endgame comic, which you should be able to find online if you look hard enough. Tom 4 is a completely separate Tom altogether. His run is now considered separate from the main Tom. Tom 3 shows up once more for the April Fool's joke that happened in 2012, and Toonami was greenlit for another go. As such, Tom 3.5 shows up. We're supposed to assume that this is Tom 3 but with a refurbished body, as well as a refurbished bridge of the Absolution Mark II, as everything else seems to be entirely the same. Though there is no Sarah to be seen, the reason for this is unknown. During Tom 3.5's run, we get confirmation that Tom 4 is a separate Tom by a conversation the two are having. Tom 3.5 eventually goes into Tom 5 and we get the Absolution Mark III along with the return of Sarah. Of course, after that is where we get to the Intruder II. So the first episode starts off with the Absolution going through space. Tom and Sarah are discussing a riddle when they are approached by a large ship of unknown origin. They try to get closer to figure out what's wrong. The ship was actually producing a distress signal, but eventually it fires on them, Sarah raising the shields to defend them from the attack. But they aren't completely helpless against the ship.
Sarah, open fire. Full power. All batteries now.
Spinning up all guns. Target acquired. Firing all.
Hell yeah. The first shot was free. Now your ass is mine.
Oh hell yeah, now that's what I'm talking about. However, the ship still has one trick up its sleeve. It sends out an EMP wave that shuts down all of the Absolution systems. But they still have the auxiliary power and program block running, and Sarah and Tom are still running because of their AI cores being protected. But most of their systems are still offline, leaving them in a bad spot. Episode 2 starts off with Sarah rebooting as many systems as she can so they can get a fighting chance against whatever is piloting the large ship, eventually getting the artificial gravity back on so that Tom can move around easily again, as a boarding pod is launched from the big ship with the intent to ram them. The shields won't be back up in time, so Tom has to go near where the enemy is planning on entering from to deal with it himself. Tom picks up his gun and heads to the elevator, the pod ramming the ship on the 54th floor. Tom wonders what they could want from there, and Sarah mentions that it's where her AI core is. And you'd think, and this is me getting on a slight tangent, you'd think that Tom would have that floor memorized since that is where Sarah's AI core is located. Sarah says that maybe the person who boarded the ship knew that she wouldn't be taken offline with the EMP. That's why they're there, to take her. Either way, Tom isn't down for someone trying to steal Sarah and heads to the 54th floor, where the episode ends. Episode 3 continues where we left off. Tom heading down carefully through the halls of level 54, with Sarah informing him that she's confirmed the identity of the intruder.
It's the intruder. From before.
Wait, what? That giant blob that attacked us like forever ago?
Yes. There's something else mixed in with its DNA. Some sort of intelligence I can't seem to read. It seems familiar, but I don't know why.
Needless to say, it's already eaten through a couple of doors and is nearly to the room housing Sarah's AI. So Tom hurries up the pace, and at this point you can see a couple of warning flags here. If this was the intruder, how could it have used the big ship? And the boarding pod? Now Sarah mentions that it has some kind of intelligence mixed in with it that feels familiar. What could it have done to gain more intelligence, and why is the intelligence familiar? Well, those questions are immediately answered as Tom turns the corner only to be met with confusion and a familiar face.
Give me Sarah.
The intruder is revealed to be the same blob as before, yes, but condensed into a body with Tom 1's old broken metal shell of a body being part of the outer layers. Oh my goodness, the payoff. 15 years. 15 years we get to see the intruder again, and he's using Tom 1's body, our beloved Tom 1, as a mangled puppet. This is horrifying. It totally shocked me. And let's also mention the fact that the intruder's voice is a mix of Sonny Straits, who voiced Tom 1, and Steve Bloom, who is the current Tom. Yeah, they really went all out with this. So yeah, this guy wants Sarah and Tom's not having any of that, so Tom fires a shot at what I will now dub the Tom-Truder. So much for a better gun, Tom. And so the episode ends with...
I make a really crappy bad guy.
Episode 4 starts off with a shootout, Tom defending himself from blob projectiles that Tom-Truder is spewing at him, only to get hit in the arm. He manages to shoot Tom-Truder once more, but to no avail. Tom-Truder then uses his blob powers to seal off the area he's in, forcing Tom to try and find another way into the AI core room. Sarah mentions it's too late and for Tom to get out of there. Eventually Tom makes it back to the elevator, but it's too late as Sarah is taken offline. She couldn't back herself up. Because of the damage done by the EMP, all the backups were fried. And this really hit home for a lot of Toonami fans. Sarah had been with Tom ever since the original Intruder, and everyone missed her when the Tom 4 era started. Even when Toonami was brought to Adult Swim, it was just Tom for a while. It wasn't until Tom 5 came along that we got Sarah back, and now she's gone. A lot of people were saddened by this. Once the sadness passed, however, everyone was in a rage. We all wanted to see Tom-Truder get what was coming to him. Episode 5, we see Tom defeated in the elevator, having closed it up. Tom-Truder shows up on the screen of the elevator and mocks Tom, saying how he controls the ship and boasting that he's won and that he wants to make him suffer. He does also mention that Tom is probably the most resilient being he's ever tried to absorb, and it shows because of how he's parading around with Tom 1's corpse on his body. Tom 1 was fully consumed, but his armor and AI core were so sturdy that they couldn't be completely consumed. So the intruder merged with the first Tom's AI core, gaining more intelligence in the process. He then became obsessed with the Toms to the point where he tracked down Tom 4 and killed him.
And there was much rejoicing.
Yeah, I know you people, you're happy because that abomination that is Tom 4 is now dead. But this really amplifies the threat level right now, because the Tom-Truder was not only able to just kill Sarah, but Tom 4. And you want to know how he found Tom 4? A broadcast between the current Tom and Tom 4. Tom has a new fired up determination, probably due to the anger he's feeling right now, and reactivates the elevator. Tom-Truder guesses that Tom is going to be going to the bridge and tells him that he'll meet him there. Tom, however, goes to level 22, overriding the elevator and getting out. He then proceeds to a console in an airlock station and begins downloading information. For what? We'll just have to wait and see. Tom-Truder wonders where Tom is and eventually finds out due to a locator device on Tom. Tom, as a result, pulls out his damaged arm, which holds a locator in it.
There's your locator, ass. Here goes nothing.
In episode 6, while Tom-Truder begins to head for level 22 while gloating and thinking he's won, Tom heads to the large spaceship that the Intruder had piloted. Eventually he gets to the bridge and tries to find out what's working. Weapons are fried, engines are toast, but the escape pods still work, and oh! But the reactor is still going strong. And so with the knowledge he has now, Tom has a plan. Meanwhile, Tom Intruder gets to level 22 and finds out that Tom has escaped. However, he knows that Tom couldn't have gone too far, and he figures he's at the large ship. Tom Intruder starts activating the cannons through the console that Tom used earlier, and contacts Tom, telling him how it was great for him to just put himself as a sitting duck. However, by this point, Tom has flooded the reactor core on the large ship, and if sci-fi knowledge has told me anything, is that the reactors for both the large ship and the Absolution are nuclear powered. So Tom hops into an escape pod, and we have this epic moment after Tom has one final thing to say to Tom Intruder.
So make it quick. This is for what you did to Sarah. What?
Yeah, not only did a nuclear explosion happen with the big ship, which obviously would be very big considering the size of it, the resulting explosion tore through the Absolution and destroyed it. But obviously that kind of chain reaction would cause the Absolution's nuclear core to explode and tear it apart even further. And with that, Tom Intruder, the Intruder, is finally dead after 15 years. Now he gloated before about how Tom tried to kill him by cutting off the engine of the ship in the original Intruder. Tom wasn't trying to kill him that time. Tom just needed to get the Intruder away from the Absolution at the time, so I doubt the explosion they used there did any real damage to it. Here, however, 2 nuclear explosions in the span of seconds. The Intruder is dead. But his defeat had a great cost. The Absolution is gone, and Sarah is still gone as well. Not to mention Tom is in an escape pod heading towards who knows where. But we still have one last episode. Tom in his escape pod tries to find a planet with a decommissioned base at least. He eventually comes across Shogo 162 and charts a course for it. Unfortunately, because of the distance, he has a rather bumpy landing as his fuel supply runs out. He gets out and he sees an old abandoned base. Heading inside with his gun ready just in case that there were some surprises that the old owners left behind. He eventually comes across a control room and begins reactivating everything, soon plugging a USB into the computer. He begins to upload the entire Absolution operating system infrastructure into the system, which is what he downloaded in episode 5. Then Sarah suddenly comes back online, though a bit more glitchier than before, with many people sighing in relief that Sarah wasn't dead. Needless to say, you're probably wondering what happened. Well, allow Tom to explain.
I downloaded the entire Absolution's infrastructure mainframe, hoping that there was enough of you spread out through all of its systems that plugging all that back into a healthy mainframe might allow you to reconstitute.
Sarah mentions how she's not sure how much of her is gone and what new things she'll find in this new system, but she's just happy to see him again. But she's not happy that Tom's down an arm due to the Intruder. Tom mentions that yeah, they'll need to get him a new arm, and to clean up this place since it may take a while to get a new Absolution. Sarah eventually finds an old molecular printer, and they put in the schematics for Tom's arm so that they can print it. But because it hasn't been active in some time, the designs are a bit off. But Tom mentions,
Well, it ain't perfect, but it'll do till perfect gets here. Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome. And by the way,
I know. We have a broadcast to do. Takes more than an insane intergalactic blob creature with an obsession to stop Toonami, baby. So, you ready?
I'm ready. Say the words, Tom.
Oh yeah, I still love this job.
and with that, the Intruder II is now over. And things have changed for Toonami. Oh man, they have changed indeed. This was a great event, and you can already tell by my enthusiasm that this is my favorite tie of all time, with the Intruder coming in second, Lockdown in third, and Trapped in Hyperspace in last. Now then, in terms of presentation, scope, and music, this event exceeds all others previous to it. There's tension in the air. You're waiting on the edge of your seat for an entire week trying to figure out what will happen next, and you're just so immersed because of the soundtrack that helps piece everything together. But let's go into the positives and negatives, with me wanting to talk about the negatives first. It is spread over 7 weeks. The original Intruder event was spread over a long period of time due to the contest that was being held. However, the main plot of it wrapped up within a week or so. Now this is nitpicking due to Toonami only being on Saturday nights. What also didn't help was how short some of the episodes were, some only barely scratching 2 minutes long. Because Toonami is still low budget, not much could be done, because aside from the quick shootout at the beginning of episode 4, there's not that much action to be had in the special. Which is a shame, because I really wanted to see more action-oriented stuff, especially due to the Intruder having a humanoid form this time. And that's all for the negatives, not too many, but enough to show that this event wasn't completely perfect. However, the episodes were well paced and the entirety of the event was well paced as well. While they could have added maybe a minute or two of content onto the event, it's still good as is. The music was just a joy to listen to, and they've released it as well for everyone to download. It really helps set the mood and tone for each of the scenes, and it makes for nice background music. Toonami CGI has come a long way in the past 4 years. While I would classify the CGI as timeless across the board, you can still tell the improvements they've made in terms of animation, lighting, shading, models, and so on. The voice work is excellent as well, Steve Blum, Sonny Strait, and even Dana Swanson doing an amazing job. Not to mention, the writing really helped out, with Steve giving us a lot of cool Tom moments, and Sonny showing us his more deranged and murderous side with Tom Intruder, who was a really cool villain. Not to mention, I felt really emotional during certain episodes. Episode 4 along with 5 and 7 are those episodes. The voice actors did really well to make me feel for these characters. It also helped that there were so many years of Tom and Sarah bantering with each other, working together, helping each other, and so on. It really helped tug at my emotions because of the connection I grew for the two. This event delivered on 15 years of build-up. 15 years since the end of the original Intruder, where the small red blob floats across the screen and says, "The end?" We knew that there was more that could be told, and by God did the Toonami crew deliver in what was needed to be told. The whole reveal of Tom 1, while somewhat suspected, still surprised many on how it was executed. Not to mention how much Tom and Sarah had learned from all their previous encounters. Yeah, the original Absolution is a broadcast ship, but the fact that it was never prepared for attacks was such a huge detriment. Sure, it had the docks, but those did shit when it was completely destroyed by Ocelot Rex. Now, this Absolution is packing heavy-duty shields and firepower. From the ship battle in episode 1 alone, you can tell how powerful this Absolution is, because the ship it fought with was frickin' huge. Oh, an EMP/virus? Well, now Tom and Sarah's cores are shielded. Mostly Sarah though, because she had to deal with viruses in the past like Swayzak and the Joker virus. And no, I'm not kidding you, there was a Joker virus. Now then, gun-wise, well, it's hard to really say with the gun since it did no visible damage to the main body of the Intruder. But it did manage to destroy the small projectiles it shot at Tom, which is a plus since Tom's original guns did jack shit to the Intruder last time. Tom also made sure to have easy access to the Absolution's main systems through any console in order to download them, as well as removing the need for a standalone jetpack as he has a built-in one. Looks like you finally found an easier way to put that jetpack on, Tom. Needless to say, that despite the Intruder managing to one-up the Toonami duo for the most part, they were still very prepared for what was going to happen compared to last time. But that didn't stop me from being tense whenever the Intruder managed to gain the advantage, and hell, it held the advantage for most of the event. It really made me wonder how Tom was going to get out of his predicament this time. Not to mention, everything that happened each week translated to the bumpers. The bumpers followed a similar trend. It would be like you were sitting in Tom's chair and the bumpers would be airing on the screen in front of you. The first one featured a red alert on top of the bumpers. The second one, the bumpers were slightly glitchier and static filled due to the EMP. The third week had them even more glitch filled with the voices being corrupted just to show you how worse it had gotten. The fourth and fifth weeks were when Sarah was offline, so all there was on screen was random text symbols and garbled sounds and music. The 6th week was when the absolution was gone and was the best one though. Literally all that could be aired for the bumps were DOS code errors, and it was glorious. The 7th week of course featured the return of normal bumpers, but with their new style. And finally, our ending. Now a lot of people prefer Tom in a spaceship. I do favor my host being in a spaceship as well. But people prefer that mostly because of the mood whiplash from when Tom 4 started his run. You're just thrown into this new location without any explanation whatsoever. Even Tom 2 transitioning into Tom 3 had a webcomic. Here, the reason I am totally fine with it is for several reasons. First off, it was set up instead of being thrown at us, and it makes a lot of sense. Tom didn't have a backup ship. There were no ships in that area, so he needed to find a different place. Thus he lands on a planet hoping he can find a decommissioned base, and that's when he finds the base that will become the current Toonami headquarters. Second, I really enjoy the bright warm colors, and it still feels familiar because Sarah is still around, and it keeps the Sarah and Tom dynamic that everyone has come to love. Third, we aren't planning on staying here forever, obviously. Toonami will probably be back in space maybe a year or so from now, but it really does come as a nice breath of fresh air considering we've just been in the spaceship all this time aside from Tom 4. Plus, I'll admit I grew tired of the dark and dreary colors on the bridge of the third Absolution. I much prefer the cool blues of the original Absolution, and even the slight green of the second Absolution. Either way, I'm glad to see this event was extremely successful. Not only did people tune in to catch a new episode each week, but a lot of those people, including myself when possible, stuck around after the new episode had aired for the rest of the block. Needless to say, ratings picked up during those 7 weeks, and it really made the event feel a lot more successful just by seeing how many people it drew in. But with that, there's not much else to really cover on Toonami, aside from IGPX, but that'll probably happen much later down the road. Rest assured though, if an event like the Intruder II pops up again, I will definitely review it. And with that, my coverage on Toonami comes to a close. I'm Zero, and I'll be seeing you guys next time for what? Well, I've done 2 big reviews so far, so I'm going to keep the next one short but satisfying.
たった一瞬の合図が天命を塗り替えたカンカンカンと響いたあいつの足音形勢は深くて今してどんでは不安でキキキッとにらうだ花街はあでやかに重ねた手のひらに見えた覚悟という名の瞳の奥の誓いの照明燃やせ深く闇に咲いた太陽
Oh my god. You made this for me? Oh yeah, and I can really kick someone's ass if they try to mess with my reviews. Well, it doesn't have to be perfect. It'll work till perfect gets here. Besides, thank you, dude. This really means a lot to me.